Hi Sheddies, Eddie Stevens here. I'm back here in the bosque again, keeping a vigilant lookout for, I've gone the wrong way. Keeping an ever vigilant lookout for trespassers. This isn't technically my land in that it doesn't belong to me, but when I am creating content using my phone, I like to keep a mile radius of territory that I will defend with my life if I have to. If anyone stumbles across me doing this, they will be instantly killed. Over the past few weeks, fucking swarm of flies. Over the past few weeks, I have been... Fuck! God, do you ever get annoyed with nature? You know, I know they're just doing their job, but what is... I don't know if you could make that out, but it's a swarm of little... I think what they would call here gnats. What is their purpose? What do they do? They shouldn't exist. Anyway, the past few weeks I have been running my eye over the England squad, or a potential England squad, in the build-ups to the Six Nations, and I've been putting my Shider's touch on... I've done the front row. So far I've done the props, I've done the hookers, I did a lot of hookers, did the lockdowns, and now we're moving into the back row. Now, it's tempting nowadays when you're talking about back rowers to sort of put them all under one label: blindside flanker, open side flanker, and number 8, because largely all of those players can do any of those 3 jobs if they need to. It's very rare that you get a flanker who isn't at least capable of playing at number 8. But I think when you're talking about the top level, elite international rugby, the England team, we do want to sort of at least take a look at specialist number 8s. And I think for today I'm just going to be doing flankers. Actually, that's stupid. Yeah, as you can see, I don't have notes. I can't be asked to do flankers separately and then number 8s. It doesn't make any sense. We'll do the whole back row and hopefully it won't take too long. Now, as I said, I'm coming up on another swarm of these flies. Look. You see them? Don't know if you can see them. Oh, fuck, I can taste them. So let's talk back row. Let's start with established back rowers, ones currently in the England squad. And let's talk about who should be there, who shouldn't be there, and who can't be there due to injuries or whatnot. So maybe eligibility will be a factor. I don't know. Just if we look at the last World Cup, our starting back row initially, well, God, I don't remember what it was. I suppose you'd always start with Tom Curry, wouldn't you? Ben Earl forced his way into the team, and Courtney Laws was kind of established as our starting blindside flanker, right? So I think during that World Cup, we sort of settled on, when fully fit and available, Courtney Laws as 6, Tom Curry as 7, and Ben Earl at 8. And there is nothing wrong with that back row. However, we can't have it because we're not allowed to have nice things. Courtney Laws is retired from international rugby, and Tom Curry evidently has a serious injury that is going to keep him out for the whole season, so we can't have him. It's unfortunate because Tom Curry is one of those very few players we have where you can probably say he's you could definitely say he's world class, and no one can really mock you for that. So all we have left of that starting back row is Ben Earl, who absolutely deserves to retain the number 8 shirt. But who else do we have? Well, within that World Cup squad, we had Lewis Ludlam, a player moving to France, but still at Northampton for now, and still probably worth having in this upcoming Six Nations squad. We had Billy Vunipola, who I don't think I need to tell you because I've said it. I made a whole video about it. He is no longer an international number 8. He's not even really, in my opinion, he's a decent Premiership number 8. He's not for his physical prowess, which is what he was initially. You know, his whole point of difference has been that he is a big, monstrous ball carrier, and defences have to commit extra men to stop him. That's not really the case anymore. He's fairly easily contained. The one strength he does have, and this is from watching him at Saracens, is that he does read the game pretty well, and he gets himself in positions where he's able to essentially just be an extra pair of hands. And he weighs a ton, but nevertheless, absolutely so far from deserving of an England spot that I wish I hadn't even spoken about him for so long. So no Billy Vunipola. Now, one player who I was on the record for kind of giving up on, and I couldn't understand why people kept mentioning his name, but has absolutely shut me up and proven me wrong, is I heard my own footsteps in the leaves and got scared. Thought it was someone else. Sam Underhill. Sam Underhill is one of these guys, like Manu Tuolangi, who is just perpetually getting injured. If he's not injured, he's barely recovered from injury and generally lasts half a dozen matches before he's injured again. And for that reason, I just couldn't justify him being selected in the England squad. For this last World Cup, I couldn't believe he was brought in. I was annoyed about it, but then he came in and was the best player on the pitch. And when someone is capable of that you just can't leave them out. He's still a world-class defender and all-round number 7 or 6, but see him more as an open-side flanker. He's got absolutely everything. If he's fit, he has to be starting now for England. Just briefly going back to Tom Curry, with him out injured, we have to replace him. The temptation, and I've been one of the people who has called for this before, the temptation is to replace him with his twin brother, because it sort of makes sense on paper. We've all been guilty of sort of describing Ben Curry as a clone of Tom Curry, but actually, having watched him for a lot longer, it's not the case. He's not the same player that his brother is. He's not as big, he's not as physical, still a really good player, still worth having a conversation about whether or not he should be in the England squad, but personally I'm not sure. And the interesting thing is, when he first came on the scene, he was, well, first of all, not really even ranked. Do you remember? This is one of those weird Eddie Jones selections where you were like, did he mean to pick this player? Was it that had he seen them play? Because I think he picked, I know people say that he picked Ben Curry first, then Ben Curry got injured, and then Tom Curry came in. But I have this weird feeling they were both kind of selected. But at any rate, at that point, none of us really thought that much about either of the Curry twins. They were all right. But Ben Curry has gone on to become, as I said, this incredible world-class player. And I find it interesting that he seems to have packed on a lot more size, whereas his twin brother hasn't. And I'm wondering, is it just from being in an England setup? Have they given him the training, the nutrition and supplements? I'm winking, I'm developing a sty here, so it might look weird. Has just being in that setup meant that he's been able to build his body up? Or is it something even more crazy, like just playing at that higher intensity has elicited some kind of natural response on his body where he has adapted to that environment? Probably not. And although they are identical twins, you do get differences like this. You know, I played county rugby as a teenager with two twins from, I think they were from Cambridge, I can't remember their names, but one was a hooker and was a little on the chunky side, the other one was a winger. And I'm pretty sure they're identical twins. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they weren't twins. Did I even play county rugby? I don't know. Anyway, Ben Curry's worth, at least discussing, although I don't think he would quite make my list. Who am I forgetting? Well, for number 8, Alex Dombrandt was starting number 8 for England for at least a season before the World Cup, maybe 2, I can't remember. And he kind of never really lived up to the hype. Well, here's some geese. He never really lived up to the hype that he'd created playing for Harlequins. And maybe that'll be the case if he's given another chance. But I have to say, so far this season, he's probably been the form number 8. I'm sure I'll think of someone. I'm sure you could think of someone that could compete for that title, and I'm sure I will over the course of this video. Feels like it's going to be a long video, so I'm sorry about that. But Alex Dombrandt, I think I would have him in the England squad. Of course, Zach Mercer was an option, but he's been injured. And to be honest with you, I was watching him for Gloucester. It's not Gloucester. Who's he playing for now? I think it is Gloucester. I was watching him this season, and he wasn't exactly setting games alight, but actually looked good, and it might take him some time. Another player whose name has been mentioned, and he was in the England squad before the World Cup, given a chance, which he definitely didn't take, is Tom Pearson, who, for me, I've been watching him very carefully for Saints, and he hasn't really blown me away, but he has had his moments. There's been a couple of really good moments he's had. Right now, I wouldn't have him in an England squad because there's just too many other players playing better than him. Tom Willis, another player who a lot of people were wanting for the World Cup, was looking amazing when he was playing for Wasps. Came into, moved over to France and, by all accounts was even better there. Although, as I've mentioned on my podcast, you tend to hear this every time an England player goes to France. It's an interesting conversation that could be had about the reasons for why players in a so-called weaker league, not looking that great in England, can go to France and suddenly be the best player in the league. It happens all the time. But since he's come back to England, Tom Willis for Saracens actually looked a little bit better this last weekend. But he's not quite back to his rampaging best and wouldn't quite make my Six Nations squad. Now I'm trying to remember what's going on with his brother. Jack Willis, I think he got injured again. How serious is it? I don't know. But he's playing in France, and I'm not sure if he's even eligible. Someone let me know in the comments. If he is eligible and he is fit, he would always be in my Six Nations squad. I think I've covered most of the big names, most of the current players, people who have been capped or been at least picked in training squads for England. But what about some of those players that have not yet been in an England squad that maybe aren't on on most people's lips when we talk about England? Who are my personal favourites, or at least back rowers that look really promising that I wouldn't mind seeing given a chance for England? Well, one player who is consistently excellent and someone who has grown on me, not literally, can you imagine, is, what's his name? Will Evans, you idiot, at Quins. An absolute specialist open side breakdown expert. What he does that is undeniable and almost without compare. I mean, the only player that could compete with him on this is Jack Willis, who's probably better at it, actually, because he's a freak. Every time I see Will Evans play for Quins, he is stealing balls constantly in places where he has no right to do it. He's also incredibly good at reading the game, incredibly mobile, incredibly tough. Just gets through a lot of work. He's not going to go on a rampaging ball carrying run because that's not what he does. But what he does do, he does so well that I would like to see him at some point given a shot on the international stage. These flies are ridiculous. Another flanker at Quins that I really like is Jack Kenningham, although I haven't seen much of him this season, so I don't even know if he's fit or available. But he's someone I wouldn't be surprised to see in the conversation at some point. Again at Quins, I think a really promising young player that I don't think it's too soon to talk about bringing into the squad is Chandler Cunningham South. When he was playing for the under-20s, he was terrifying defences, basically unstoppable one-on-one. Just a wrecking ball, reminded me of Billy Vunipola back in the day. And on the brief glimpses I've seen of him for Quins, has looked very similar, just very, very big and strong and physical. If not this year, soon he will be an England number 8, I have no doubt about that. Well, there was a lovely scenic spot I was going to stop at to record the rest of this, but then two old ladies showed up and I let them live. I didn't kill them, but I decided not to stick around. So anyway, I've named a lot of back rowers that options for England, and I'm sure, I know for a fact that I've forgotten some. Let me know in the comments who you think I've forgotten. But really quickly, I'm going to name usually I like to think of 3 players in any given position. Whenever I'm I don't know, it's something I do when I try and fall asleep at night. Sometimes I go through each position in the England squad and think of the top 3, and sort of, that's how I get comfortable with the idea that we have enough depth. But for the purposes of this video, I think I'll name 2 back rows. And I don't know how many back rowers Borthwick will pick in his England squad, but it'll probably be something like 6. So maybe not, I haven't really thought that through. But here's the 2 back rowers, or the 2 back rows that I think we should be drawing from in this upcoming Six Nations squad. Ludlam 6, Underhill, almost said Underwood, sorry I'm old, Underhill 7, Ben Earl 8. And for the second back row, this got really trickier than I thought it would, because at 6, if he's fit and if he's eligible, it has to be Jack Willis, although he could obviously play 7. These players can be moved around. If he's not fit and he's not eligible, I'm tempted to go with his brother Tom Willis and just hope that he comes good, because I haven't seen enough of anyone else. I'd be tempted to... One player I didn't mention before is actually Lewis Ludlow from Gloucester. He's a player that I actually think could do really well in that position. Other than something really radical and outside of the box, I'm not sure who I would pick. Maybe I'm brain farting and forgetting someone. I don't know. At 7, I'm kind of wanting to go with Will Evans. Give him a chance. Again, this is with 6 back rows being picked. I'm not necessarily suggesting he should start for England in the Six Nations, but I think he should be in there somewhere. And at 8, I'm torn between Alex Dombrandt and Chandler Cunningham South. I think it would kind of depend on what Borthwick thought of Cunningham South if he gets a look at him. I don't know. But these are the sort of players I'm looking at right now. And it's a shame that Tom Curry is injured, and it looks like Jack Willis probably is too. And with Courtney Laws retiring, it could be a bit of a tricky area for England, especially if we have any more injuries. You may have noticed I specifically never mentioned Alfie Barberry, and that's because I've said enough about him, and I'm just terrified that he'll end up dead if I say any more due to my Shiders Touch. If you don't know what the Shiders Touch is, you should be listening to my podcast, Rugby Rant to Banter. If you haven't subscribed to this yet, subscribe to it, like it, and I'll be back with more bullshit one of these days. Riding to the dawn.